Hi everyone, welcome to the Jane Doe Podcast, where we discuss murders, mysteries, and more. I'm Amalia, and with me today I have Said and Anton.
Hello everyone.
Hello everyone, today we'll talk about Andrea Yates' case, and I'm super excited because actually we have a special guest, a Olivia psychology student that hopefully will help us to get a deeper understanding of all mental illnesses that are mentioned in the story.
As a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only. We do extensive research on our story to try and provide the most unbiased version, as well as it does come with a trigger warning. We understand that a lot of the topics that we will discuss today are upsetting to most, and therefore, please click away if you could be triggered by topics such as murder, child abuse, or mental illness. So let's get into it, y'all. So, Andrea Yates was born in 1964 in Houston, Texas. About her childhood, she was a very proactive student in high school. She was a member on the National Honor Society and the swim team captain. So she was a kid that, went out and did a lot. However, it has been said about her that during that time, she also unfortunately suffered from an eating disorder. She had bulimia, as well as she was considered suicidal as a teenager during that time. And so coming from her childhood, we already can kind of identify that she has struggled with mental illness in the past. Nevertheless, she went to the University of Texas to study nursing and graduated in 1986, where she went after that to work as a registered nurse and met her future husband in 1989, Russell Yates. They got married in 1993 and really were moving fast as a relationship, mostly because they're both religious. Russell actually introduced Andrea to Michael Warrenicki, who is a preacher that Russell was a follower of. Honestly, most people would not agree to the teachings of Michael. I mean, at least to most people, they are considered very kind of sexist and very concerning. They really did follow his preachings, and as a family even, they were actually quite close with Michael and his family. They were considered to be very close friends after some time. And through his teachings, the Yates kind of vowed to each other to have, quote, as many children as nature would allow, end quote. That went on happening. They had 4 boys and a girl. They named each of the children after a figure in the Bible. So they had John, Paul, Luke, and Mary. However, unfortunately, throughout all of her pregnancies, Andrea suffered with postpartum depression, which is said to have been increasing in severity throughout the years and throughout the pregnancies. I would like to invite Olivia to tell us a little bit about postpartum depression so we can get a deeper understanding what this is. Could you please tell us about postpartum depression?
Postpartum depression, in the UK at least, is also called PPD, and it's a medical condition that many women get after having a baby. Normally just strong feelings of sadness, anxiety, tiredness that lasts for quite a while, but it is mostly just after giving birth. But they make this hard for mothers to take care of themselves and their children.
Right, so postpartum depression was a big issue in their family, and that's why they actually decided to maybe stop having kids. After Mary, the youngest daughter, was born, unfortunately, Andrea's father passed, leaving her in a very vulnerable state. She was put onto multiple antidepressants and medication to help her recover. Later, she did get better and she was put off these antidepressants and medications. And at that time, they were already living in a house that they bought after moving out of RV that they used to live in. Actually, this was an idea of the preacher, but now they decided to actually settle down, start living fine, and have a, nice family again. Andrea's at this point of her antidepressants, they thought she really did get better. On June 20th, 2001, Russell Yates went to his usual job at 8:30 in the morning. After he left, Andrea went to make breakfast for the eldest children. She made cereal. After that, she went to get her youngest boys. First, drowned John, Paul, and Luke in a bathtub filled with cold water, then placed them on the bed and covered them with a sheet. After that, she went for the youngest daughter, Mary. Unfortunately, as well, drowned her and went to get the oldest son, Noah. After Noah noticed Mary's lifeless body in the bathtub, he decided to try and run away from his mother. But at the end, she ended up catching him and drowning him as well. There was obviously a struggle and he was trying to fight her, as well as it is said that he was asking for forgiveness because he really truly did not understand the reasoning for this assault of hers, and he thought that maybe it was punishment for something. After she did drown her eldest son Noah, she left him in the bathtub and moved Mary's body onto the bed, where she laid her in the arms of her sons. She called the police and was repeatedly asking for an officer, as well as she called her husband and asked him to come home, not explaining why. When the police arrived, they found Noah's lifeless body still in the bathtub, and the rest of the children were on the bed laying together. Later, Andrea explained that the reason why she placed the kids in this certain way was that when they get to heaven, for them to be able to take care of each other and to take care of her youngest daughter. She explained that through the teachings of preacher Michael, she believed that the only way that she could save her children's innocence, make sure that they do not go to hell, is by killing them at the age before they commit sin. In her mind, she was trying to save her children. She loved them dearly, apparently, but she needed to save them. In court, of course, she was psychoanalyzed. It was agreed by both psychiatrist from the defendant team and from the opposing team that she is mentally unstable. However, trial did go on because in the eyes of law, she knew that she was doing was illegal, and this is why trial continued. She was given life and proven guilty, however, was not given the death sentence at that time. Then a second trial was held. In this trial, Andrea was proven not guilty for reasons of insanity, and she was sent to Kernville State Hospital, a low-security mental facility where she, by law, serves out her life sentence as well as does get an evaluation, which honestly, by the looks of things and by interviews that we have watched of her close relatives as well as people that were very involved in the trial, they do not think that she'll ever be again in a mental state that will allow the hospital to release. Would you feel comfortable to talk to us about schizophrenia? How should we kind of understand it?
Okay, schizophrenia is a serious mental condition which involves the breakdown between the connection of thoughts and emotion and behavior, which doesn't allow someone to have perfect perception of stuff. They normally leads to flawed perception, abnormal actions and feelings, which means that they're very withdrawn from reality and are quite delusional.
Would you say that PPD have an impact on a person with schizophrenia or with already depression and suicide? Could you maybe have something to say about what could happen to a person like this? And would this put a person in a position to, on their own, get delusions that force them to drown her 5 children? Who's at fault here? Was it really the preacher who was feeding her the delusions that her children will go to hell? And is he the blame that he was feeding a schizophrenic and a person with already so many mental disorders? Do we blame him? Do we blame her husband for not taking care of her enough? Or do we blame, the illness?
With knowing that, you have to be careful with the things you tell people, because people who have schizophrenia and postpartum depression and are already very susceptible to mental illness because they aren't able to process information rationally. There's a thing called comorbidity where 2 or more diseases is present in medical sense in a patient. In relation to the Andrea Yates situation, it's likely that because she had already experienced depression and that had developed for quite some time, and even further. And within schizophrenia, we have delusions of grandeur, which refer to when someone has a false belief that they are someone else, usually with grand power or similar. And that can include thinking that certain people around them have a grand power, which would tie in the situation very closely to schizophrenia. So with all these things in mind, the people around her should have been a bit more wary of what they told her, taking care of her and stuff like that.
In my opinion, Russell Yates was a good family man and good worker. However, in one day, doctors discovered schizophrenia in his wife, which greatly affected her husband. Russell introduced his wife to Dr. Michael himself. Also, he knew that fashions were fanatic. In my view, Russell is to blame for everything that happened. He knows that Dr. Michael claimed that children who turned 14 would go to hell. Rusty was so busy with work that at some moment he gave up on family problems. Before the murder, the doctors advised Russell not to leave his wife at home alone without supervision, but Russell decided that if he spent a lot of time with her, she would become addicted, and he decided to leave her alone with the children, which led to the tragedy. Even Dr. Michael himself said that Russell stopped caring for his family because he was too deep into his work. I would like to say that one of the reasons for this brutal murder was the husband.
As for me, I think that preacher is the one that is guilty, because as far as I know, in the close circle of Andrea, everyone was aware that she had struggling with mental health. He was feeding her with dangerous thoughts. Also, he sent her, the quote from one of them is, God knows how wicked you are. This is what he wrote to her about being a working woman, which was prohibited in his teachings.
I don't agree with Anton. Yes, I understand that Dr. Michael also played a major role in this strategy, but if Russell, her husband, didn't introduce his wife to Dr. Michael, all this strategy would not have happened, because Russell was a single reason his wife and Dr. Michael met.
Well, obviously, in situations like these, a lot of factors contribute, but don't you guys think that being schizophrenic with religious delusions, as well as being deeply unwell and depressed, played the biggest role in this? Because a lot of people follow strange teachings of different preachers, and a lot of people have difficult family lives, but it really takes something to commit a crime like that. So I feel like mental illness, especially in Andrea's case, schizophrenia and postpartum depression and major depression, in general, played a really big role in this. This is a very violent and a very horrifying case. And this could have been avoided, this whole crime and this whole unfortunate situation. Is there anybody to blame for this? Well, I don't know. What do you guys think? Please leave your comments below, because there have been a lot of debates about this and a lot of different opinions. Thank you so much for listening. We hope to see you next week. As well as a big thank you to Olivia, who agreed to come out and talk to us today about psychology. Stay safe, y'all.